welcome to the Dynasty Vipers Vipercast, where all things football are injected right to your veins, with your hosts, Matt Donnelly, Calvin Shoemake, and Jeff Mueller.
What is up, and welcome to a very special edition of the Dynasty Vipers Team Spotlight Series. I am pumped up to talk about the Arizona Cardinals today. And to do that, we have a fantastic guest. We have all kind of like awesome things that we're going to talk about tonight. But first, let me set up the exactly what we're doing here. So, as I've said for all these shows, with the Dynasty Vipers, we like to think about Dynasty fantasy football, but in the off season, it seems like we get to February and all you hear about are rookies and, you know, what they can do and what their 40 time is and how much they can bench press and all these things. And that's important. We want to understand these rookies, but we also need to understand the teams and the moves that they're going to make and the coaching staffs and all the different pieces and what they could do. That's going to help us out in our startup drafts and everything else that we're doing over the off season. So to help introduce us to the Arizona Cardinals and to talk more about that, we've got a bunch of great football people here, and they also happen to be Arizona Cardinals fans. So they all went crazy in the Hail Mary this year. And in fact, we have the inventor. We've researched the internet. The inventor of the Hail Mary is right here on this show. His name is Alex Clancy. Alex, go ahead and introduce yourself and tell everybody where they can find you and what you're working on.
My name is Alex Clancy. I'm a co-host with Bo Brock. Above me from Locked On Cardinals, I'm a part of the Fox Sports affiliate in Phoenix, host, producer, and an Arizona Cardinals lover and hater, depending on the day.
Very good. Unicorn, thank you so much for joining us. Excited you helped set up this and get us these guests here too. So excited to have you on. Thanks for doing that. Where can we find you and what are you doing this offseason?
Yeah, so I've actually just recently joined the guys at True North Fantasy. It's an awesome crew. We have a lot of really cool projects in the works right now that are going to be coming out in the coming weeks. So definitely keep an eye out for that. You can also find me pretty soon over at Raising Zona.
Very cool. Yeah, I love the True North guys. That's just some of my favorite people right there. We did the Pittsburgh Steelers preview with some of those guys, so certainly love that. Trying to hook up with one of the Eagles too. Yeah, so very cool. Bo, how are we doing today? Where can
doing
we find
great.
You?
Yeah, you can of course find us Locked On Cardinals. Somehow Alex and I are able to not quit every day working with each other. It's kind of crazy. We've got some pretty contrasting personalities, but it makes for a fun podcast on a daily basis, talking about one of the more exciting up and coming teams in the Arizona Cardinals. You can find me easiest way, just search Bo Brack. That's how it's easiest way to find it in Twitter. And yeah, I mean, that's basically what we're doing. I do the Locked On NFL podcast on Mondays. But otherwise, just focused on the Cardinals and just firing off hot takes on Twitter.
So I'm a little disappointed. I'm the only one that showed up wearing my Arizona Cardinals jersey. I got Larry Fitzgerald talking here.
Yeah.
It's awesome. But yeah, like obviously, you know, it's every show is different and every fan base is different. The Arizona Cardinals have their own history. Unicorn, what's your history with the Arizona Cardinals?
Well, I'm an Arizona native, so it's always been about the Cardinals for me. I feel like it's a great team to root for. There's so many great guys on the team that are just, you know, they're easy to root for. There's so much young talent. It's a developing team, so there's obviously frustrating moments and lots of inconsistency sometimes, but I think it's a great team to root for. I think they're going places.
Very cool. Bo, what's your history like with the Arizona Cardinals? Did you grow up a fan? Did you become a fan?
I grew up actually just outside of Washington, D.C., so I grew up in the NFC East back when it was the Phoenix Cardinals. It was them, Dallas, New York Giants, Philadelphia Eagles before they kind of restructured things, reorganized the NFL. So I remember watching, you know, Jake the Snake come into D.C. and take on Washington back in the day. And then I moved out for college, and professionally I started covering the Arizona Cardinals, and it was a team that was just coming off the Super Bowl and then had a couple down years. But it was just kind of nice to see this fan base, we were talking a little basketball off air. It used to be a basketball town. It used to be all about the Phoenix Suns. It was the run and gun Suns. It was Steve Nash. And there's no question about it. It's a football town now. It's all about the Arizona Cardinals. And it was just this fan base. They've been begging for a team to get excited about for years. And finally, I think they're on the cusp of it. They got it right as far as the quarterback in the draft. It was no Matt Leinart. It was no Josh Rosen. It's Kyler Murray. And just kind of following and covering this team the last couple of years, it's tough not to find yourself rooting for them, especially after I've covered the 2018 season. And there was just like no positives. There was absolutely no positives except for a little side note. It got them the number 1 pick. So mine kind of came from covering the team and then wanting to cover a team that's been good. And I think I'm slowly but surely saying, okay, there is a fan in me as far as the Cardinals, but we try to stay objective. I think that's what's cool about our podcast is it's an unbiased take. And I'm sure Unicorn's got the same kind of, even though she's a fan, she can light into them and say, hey, I didn't like this move. I didn't like the way that Cliff Kingsbury called it down the stretch. So that's our take. We're not beholden to anybody. We're not part of the flagship radio station. We have our ability to say what we want, and Alex certainly does.
Well, Alex, I won't tell anybody if you want to go on the Cardinals today. So, What's your history like with the team?
I mean, before I moved here in 2010. So before that, the only memory I had was watching Larry Fitzgerald in college, watching him get drafted, and then where I was when the San Antonio Holmes catch happened. Like that's all that mattered. I remember exactly when I moved here. I started with on Cardinals at the beginning of the 2017 season, and watching in London, Carson Palmer break his arm after David Johnson had gone out and then Bo and I had taken over together in 2018. I remember sitting next to him in the press box, week 1, Washington professional football team, his favorite team growing up. They were in town, and the Arizona Cardinals were on the field offensively for 5 minutes in the first half with Sam Bradford out of 30. And I'm like, this is going to be a long year. And we had to do five podcasts a day. So it's like, but yeah, it's cool for the fans and everything. The media members needed this too. It's nice. It's nice to be selfish and actually have something positive to talk about. And yeah, I mean, it's definitely not perfect. There's a lot of question marks, but it's evolved and it's getting so much better by the day. Like the fact that the Cardinals are even talked about nationally is something that's been so far removed since 2015 that it's just fun for good or bad. The fact that they missed the playoffs, unfortunately, it's good for business, but it's you would have liked to see them kind of make it. So it's been a long journey for me, but I'm an objective fan, I guess, of the Cardinals.
Well, and Larry Fitzgerald's been, one of the obviously veteran presences now, but like the superstar for the team for a long time. But he's not like that, top like 5 or 6 superstars of the NFL type guy. Like top 5 or 6 most likable guys probably. But now with Kyler Murray, it's like you've got a legit bona fide superstar. And like you said, you get that national coverage. People don't forget that the Arizona Cardinals exist. And that's like when the Saints drafted Reggie Bush, that I remember that's how I felt here. And so 2020 was a pretty good season. I mean, like it ended with Bruce Arians lifting the Lombardi trophy, maybe not in the year that Arizona Cardinals fans had hoped. But, like it had to be kind of nice seeing Bruce Arians have some success, right? He's a pretty likable guy.
Yeah, no doubt about it. No doubt about it. I mean, BA was one of those guys, he had to wait until he was 60 years old to get his first head coaching opportunity. And it seemed like the league was even reluctant to give him a chance after he won the Coach of the Year with the Colts, filling in for Chuck Pagano battling cancer. He comes in, he was kind of the last guy hired, and that team, goes on to have more success than they've ever had since moving to Arizona. And it was like 3 futile decades for this team, and they finally got something in BA. And I think there's not going to be a single Cardinals fan that's bitter that he and the East Coast, the Tampa Cardinals, were hoisting the Lombardi Trophy. I don't know, Alex, there wasn't any ill will for really anybody.
No,
yeah.
The dude, I mean, he's the best soundbite in football.
Yeah, no doubt about
coach, and it's like the Cardinals were lucky to have he blessed the Cardinals with his presence. Like he could have gone anywhere and been a star. And they won 10 games in a row. They won 10 games 3 years in a row. They they made it work. Went to the NFC Championship game before they got punished. But like what Bo and I have talked about a lot is the next head coach for the Cardinals may have the same career path as him, and it's interesting to bring close to home is Eric Bieniemy, who's had the same kind of. He's always been the bridesmaid, but never the bride. And then Steve Keim gave him a chance. So just that's something to look out for. And one thing you mentioned about Reggie Bush quickly, isn't it crazy that Mario Williams was the right choice at 1 overall when Vince Young and Reggie Bush were like, I cannot believe Houston's not taking Reggie Bush or Vince Young, and then Mario Williams ended up having the longest career. Just blows my mind.
I was so excited about Reggie. Like, I didn't even care. Like, I just like that I like that SportsCenter would sometimes lead with the Saints. Like, that was like just a weird, like, little thing that I thought was so cool. Let's talk about 2020 for the Arizona Cardinals, though. So, Unicorn, I'll start with you. What was it like as a fan of the Arizona Cardinals in 2020?
It was a lot of up and down, you know. I think starting off the season, those first few weeks, it felt like things were kind of going strong. But there's so many holes, I think, of the team. There's so many areas that need to be addressed. It's hard to kind of pinpoint, you know, what exactly went wrong as the season progressed. There's a lot of different factors that were involved, but it was frustrating, you know, because I think, like, you know, you guys have kind of already touched on the fact that we had Hopkins now and we have Kyler, and seeing that dynamic between them is just, it's incredible, you know. So having finally two superstars like that on the offense, I think all of us had our expectations super high. But there were so many issues that just kind of brought it down. I mean, on the offensive line, on play calling, and I'm not even just really targeting Kingsbury on that, because I've seen him take a lot of flack for, you know, having bad play calling and that being the fault of some of the mishaps that have happened. And I think it's just more that he's not really having the opportunity to sort of call the plays that maybe he wants to or would call because of some of the issues that are there on the offensive line, and it's made things tough. But I think those are things that hopefully are going to be addressed at least a little bit this you know, with upcoming draft and free agency.
Bo, what was the moment like when Hopkins caught that pass in the end zone against the Bills? And I guess just overall 2020 in retrospect from you. I
mean, I don't know what was more of an exciting moment, and Alex would have to maybe jump in on this, is like when the trade actually went down. Like, because we're sitting there and it's the first day of, you know, legal tampering and deals are starting to kind of trickle out, and you see the information come. It's like, oh, like somebody's willing to take on David Johnson's bad contract. Okay, I'm pumped about this already. And it's the Houston Texans and Schefter's tweeting out information. Then you're like, no way, this can't be. Like, this is not a Schefter account. I have to make sure I don't get like this can't be real. And then Alex and I we text each other. We never call it. We called each other. Like, we picked up the phone in 2020 and we're like screaming like a bunch of like just middle schoolers. Like, oh my gosh, DeAndre Hopkins coming. So that and then the catch, you know, the Hail Murray, were two unbelievable moments that covering this team, rooting for this team. You don't experience that. You're not on that side of the trade. You're not on that side of the game-winning catch as time expires. That it was unbelievable, and we could certainly tell from our listeners and just the way that we wanted to immediately turn the mics on and talk about it. This team, you know, despite, you know, the Unicorn said the frustrations, it also provided a lot of excitement and about the future of this team. And anytime you have two superstars like that, I think you have a chance. But this offseason is we're talking about 2020, just like to set it up a little bit. This offseason is going to be paramount for this team to really turn the corner, because when Cliff Kingsbury and Kyler Murray came to the desert, they were inheriting a 3-win team. It's easy to improve off of 3 wins. It's easy to improve off of 5 wins. Proving a 500 season, that's where Steve Keim somehow is going to have to take it to the next level.
Well, you mentioned Steve Keim there, and obviously you mentioned Cliff Kingsbury as well. A couple of you guys did. Alex, I'll just toss this one over to you. Just what's your general sense, like either for you, for your listeners, whatever it is, like what's the general sense of how hot Cliff Kingsbury, there we go. How hot is his seat? Like, should his seat be hot? Like, should we be thinking about like how much success he's had so far, or is the vibe overall really positive?
Cal, listen, Cliff Kingsbury failed pre-calculus and then got bumped up to AP Calc in high school. So let's start with the foundation of where he came from. Now, it's like if Bo were to have, I don't know, got a college coaching job. Like it's an unfair setup to begin with. Now, he's done fine. Okay, he's implemented an offense that at times looks revolutionary, from time to time. But Cliff Kingsbury can't direct a whole movie. He's good at trailers, but he can't direct a whole movie. From second one to the end of the game, he can't put a whole game plan together. And what surprises me the most is his scripted plays to start the game are the ones that have the most issues. So you can look at the defense, know exactly the defense that they run. You have a whole week to plan your offense, and you can't do it. It's like an open notes test, and you can't do it. So Unicorn's right. Like, Steve Keim and the Arizona Cardinals, I say, like, they skip leg day. So they're so top-heavy, talent-wise, so top-heavy. The DeAndre Hopkins trade is a perfect example. That was an incredible, out-of-this-world move. What else was done? Isaiah Simmons, not so much. Second-round pick gone because of DeAndre Hopkins. Josh Jones, we'll see. But what did they do? The best thing they did was Lucky Fotu and Rashad Lawrence in the middle of the defensive line, I guess. Like, that was the best thing that he did aside from DeAndre Hopkins. So Cliff Kingsbury, he's not a good head coach, but he also hasn't had the talent on the offensive side of the ball, regardless if Kyler Murray and DeAndre Hopkins are there or not, to actually execute the offense that he wants to execute. So this offseason, as Bo mentioned, is paramount. If they can bring in a wide receiver, if they can bring in some offensive line help through the offensive line, or through the free agency, then we'll see what Cliff can do. Otherwise, if they go 6-10 and they bolster the roster, they've just wasted Kyler Murray's rookie scale contract on a coach that's never won on any level. Like, that's what we're staring in the face if they don't get better this season, win-loss wise.
It does sound like you think his seat should be pretty hot then. I mean, like,
he shouldn't have got hired to begin with. He should have got fired after year one. Like that's that's rational thinking.
I want to step in because I think the jury's still out. Like, he's still a guy
sweetheart for him.
He went 35-40 in the Big 12. Like,
pretty good with Patrick Mahomes. It's pretty good.
I know. People know that. It's when he did kind of fail up. It was incredible. I mean, he went from head coach. He was fired from his alma mater. But here's the thing: like, he's going to turn 40. He's still a guy. I don't think anything is out of the question. I think the jury's still out. It's in a win now time. Like, yeah, the expectations are going to. Alex says he's going to waste Kyler Murray's like rookie scale contract. Like, who's actually hoisted the Lombardi Trophy with the rookie scale contract?
Ben Roethlisberger, Russell Wilson.
I mean, Russell Wilson was probably the guy that started created the blueprint.
Ben Roethlisberger was. I think it was his second year. It was his rookie year.
But that was that was before they brought in like the new rookie contracts. Big Ben was a while ago. Like, that was when first rounders were getting absurd contracts. You weren't really saving a bunch of money going first rounders. I'm just saying, like, let's not, say, hey, we're wasting year. I mean, you still have Kyler Murray in the building, even if they don't, find themselves at the end of the season winning the last game. So I do I agree with a lot of what Alex says. Am I skeptical that Cliff Kingsbury can be the guy to get it done? Absolutely. Like, there's nothing that's telling me differently, but I don't think it's also out of the realm of possibility that he can figure it out. He's just got to, I don't know. He's got to figure out. Vance Joseph did a better job at the DC position, and Cliff Kingsbury, the one thing he doesn't have, and you saw it in Tampa Bay this season, is that Bruce Arians has guys that have been in the league for so many years. Todd Bowles, Byron Leftwich, who played, and he's a coordinator. He's an up-and-coming OC who started here in Arizona. He's got all these guys on his staff. He's got all these veterans that have played for him that want to come and play for him still. Cliff Kingsbury, the way that he got his job, I can understand why maybe those people don't like Cliff Kingsbury. He might rub them the wrong way because he got ahead of them, jumped the line. He doesn't have like a stable of players, and he doesn't have a stable of coaches that he can kind of rely upon. And with that, the deck is stacked against him. But I'm still not going to say, hey, I know definitively that he's not the guy capable of taking the Cardinals to the next step, which is the playoffs.
Unicorn, whose side are you on? You on Alex's side or Bo's side?
Oh God, I don't want to take sides, but I think
Who do you think is smarter, Bo or Alex? That's basically what I'm
No, I think I'm kind of leading to what Bo is saying, just because I feel like, and I kind of already touched on this, but I think that, we know Kingsbury is he doesn't have a ton of experience under his belt. Like I've already mentioned, there are a lot of holes on this team. I feel like what it seems like is that Kingsbury's been trying to create an offensive scheme that doesn't really work with the talent resources that are available to him. And I feel like he needs to be a little bit more realistic, maybe. But I think that's just kind of the nature of the team right now. There's a lot of development to happen. There's a lot of growing to do. I don't think he's, not necessarily the guy that's going to be able to get them there. I think we'll just have to kind of wait and see.
How would he feel about TikTok videos being made on the center of other people's stadiums?
I would love for Juju to come to Arizona. I would absolutely love it. I mean, I know there's a lot of people out there, I've been seeing it all over Twitter, who just cannot stand him, calling him a distraction, everything else. But I personally, I love to see players having fun on the field, in the locker room, whatever. Like, I don't see that as an issue. I think Juju would be an amazing complement to that offense. I would love to see it. I don't think it's going to happen, but I'd love for Juju to come to Arizona.
No, I agree. I mean, he's been one of the best number twos. Like, him and Calvin Ridley are probably the two best number twos we've seen when Antonio Brown was there. He was a great number two, Juju was, and that's all he has to be. And he'll get 8 to 10 targets a game with how bad the receiving core is for the Cardinals, not named DeAndre Hopkins. So I would love to see Juju here. You can play the slot too.
Yeah. If you can get him away, if you can pry him away from Pittsburgh, if I don't know if they're going to have the I guess salary cap resources to make it happen, but yeah, if you're asking me, would I take Juju Smith-Schuster? Absolutely. I mean, he's a versatile route runner, and I love to see diversity across your wide receiver core, and he would be a good contrasting style to DeAndre Hopkins. I mean, he'd be perfect. I mean, but there are a bunch of guys out there. They're like anybody that's good at playing the wide receiver position that can play opposite DeAndre Hopkins is like, I will welcome them with open arms.
Yeah, and you mentioned that I think the key point there is, are they going to have the cap room to do it? So right now they're about 17 million over, but there's a lot of guys they need to re-sign right now. I mean, if you look through this list, some pretty important names. Patrick Peterson, we don't know exactly what's going to happen with Larry Fitzgerald. He could decide to come back, and then you can't not sign Larry Fitzgerald. You're going to have to sign him. I don't know what they're going to do with Kenyon Drake, Devondre Campbell, you got J.R. Sweezy, Hassan Reddick. I mean, there's some pretty good names here that you got to figure out what you're going to do with. Unicorn, I'll toss this back down to you first. Like, what do you think out of all those players, who do you think they should prioritize or will prioritize to bring back?
Well, obviously, like you already mentioned, I think if Fitz does end up, planning a return, I think he gets re-signed. I have a feeling that Kenyon Drake is going to stick around, even though I don't love it. I really don't. I would way rather they just let him walk and grab ETN or Najee in the draft, but I think he gets re-signed. I mean, and I guess it wouldn't be the worst thing. It's not like he's been, actually unproductive this season. I think that, especially considering that ankle situation or whatever it was that he had going on over the summer, but I think our expectations were just a lot higher. And I think there are other rookies out there that kind of show a little bit more of that, powerful play, that ability to break tackles that I just feel like you don't really see from Drake.
Bo, what do you think about the unrestricted free agents that the Cardinals have that they need to try and sign this year?
Man, we talk about this every day, and you would think I would have a better plan, at least my plan for what the Arizona Cardinals like. I think we've decided that the Cardinals, as far as Patrick Peterson, they're not going to be able to find a middle ground as far as him, where he is in his career. He's going to be 31. He's probably going to want to secure the bag one last time before he's done. He's had a couple of seasons. He requested a trade in 2018, and he's trying to kind of endure himself back to this fan base. Like, is he going to, kind of put his own money where his mouth is and say, yeah, he wants to be that next Larry Fitzgerald and stick around. Like, I'm so curious to see if the money's even for Pat Pete. Like, if he would take the money and stay in Arizona. I'm not convinced that he would. Like, I kind of think he's intrigued with what else is out there. I do think that the outside corner position is one that they have to just rebuild. Like, regardless, if they bring back Patrick Peterson, if P2's back in that locker room, they still have to have somebody to supplement, finally be that cornerback too. But as far as, I hope Kenyon Drake walks. I agree with Unicorn. I think at 27, it's time for this team to invest in the running back position as far as draft capital, maybe second, third round pick. Hassan Reddick's interesting. Like, here's a guy that they didn't even pick up his 5th-year option. Like, they were ready for him to just walk after he was deemed a bust as 13th overall. He finds this role with Chandler Jones going down with the bicep injury, and he gets 12.5 sacks. Like, but are you going to pay, franchise tag him? What, Alex? It would be like $14 million to franchise tag him. Otherwise, you're going to lock him into a multi-year deal, a bunch of guaranteed dollars. Like, there's not anybody, like, even Fitz. Like, you got to have a tough conversation about Fitz. Like, the guy's been, because the franchise has been down for so long, he's been able to kind of get that blank check every year. He plays this kind of back and forth. Am I retiring? Am I going to play kind of the Brett Favre thing, but with less drama? I think that, if you can't get the money right, you can't. His production, Father Time, finally won this battle. And you just can't give him the $11 million deal any longer. It's got to make sense. So I just don't think that there's really any free agents that I say, hey, they have to keep him. He has to stay. So, but they do need to upgrade at those positions. They do need to rebuild at those positions. It's important, especially at the outside cornerback position, to really get that position right. Because look, Matthew Stafford's in this division as of right now. Russell Wilson's still in this division. And I think that the Niners are probably, the odds are they're going to upgrade at quarterback. And you got to have corners to slow down the opposing offenses.
Yeah, none of them. Get them out.
That's what I should have just said that. That's basically what.
Yeah, this is my life. As Bo talks too much, I zone out. I pretty much sum up what he says in, a sentence or less.
Yeah,
none of them. No, we know. Like, here's the thing: Spot Track is a Bible for me. Contract website. He put up Michael Giannetti. We have him on the show that I produce once a month. He put out projections for what the guys that you mentioned would get on the open market and where they would land. Patrick Peterson, he projected, would get a 2-year, $25 million deal with Denver. And that piqued our interest because it's like 2 for 25. I don't know what the guaranteed would be, but say it's like 19 guaranteed. Cardinals could do that if they wanted to. That's the perfect deal. Kenyon Drake, Unicorn, 2-year, $10 million deal with the Jets. So that, again, would be a thing that the Cardinals could do if they wanted to bring him back. Maybe it's a little bit too much if it's all guaranteed, but it's still in that wheelhouse where it's not bad. And then Hassan Reddick got 3-year, $30 million and went to Cincinnati, which is obviously out of the realm of possibility for the Cardinals. But when it comes down to it, if none of them come back, that's fine. It's fine. I mean, just good riddance. Larry Fitzgerald has been overpaid for 3 years now by 50%. He should have got 1 year, $5 million starting in 2017, but it's Larry Fitzgerald. He's Larry Fitzgerald, so he's Larry Fitzgerald. And he got what he wanted. But getting that $11 million off the books is one of the best things for the salary cap for the future for the Cardinals. It just is.
So if you're going to do that, I mean, that means you're going to have to invest in somebody else. I mean, obviously, you're going to have some cap room. You're going to have some, some holes. Like Unicorn, you talked about this team already having holes. You let Patrick Peterson walk, and you let Hassan Reddick, who just had double-digit sacks. You let those guys go. Not to mention some of these other names. I mean, how are you going to get those filled? Like, let's just. I know in the notes I had draft first and then free agency, but let's just dive into free agency right there. Who would they need to bring in to replace those guys that you let walk?
I mean, I don't know that I would be in favor of Hassan Reddick walking, to be honest with you. I would hold off on that. Patrick Peterson is washed. I'd love to see them pick someone up in the draft.
So you say really, Phil? Damn it, jeez.
I'm just saying, I love the guy because he's been a Cardinal for so long. But really, like, he's just in that place where he's past his prime, and I feel like we really need a much better situation happening at that position. So I would let Peterson go, but I would hang on to Reddick.
Yeah, I mean, as far as the Cardinals are going, you're exactly right. I mean, as far as Peterson walking, like I said, they have to rebuild that position. Regardless, if it's Peterson, you supplement him with finally getting the CB2 that you've been looking for since they drafted him in 2011. I mean, the best player that's played that position opposite him is Antonio Cromartie, and I think a couple of his kids at one point. But other than that, it's like
so many kids.
But they have to, is it drafting somebody at 16? I think, yeah, that's an absolute possibility. It's a deep position in the draft. You don't know if Caleb Farley is going to drop to you. You don't know if Patrick Surtain Jr. is going to drop to you. A guy that in every, it's so annoying. Every mock draft, J.C. Horn, South Carolina, defensive back. Nobody's creative in the mock draft world for the Cardinals. Like, give me somebody else, for God's sake. But, J.C. Horn's intriguing. You put him, you go out there, maybe you get like a Shaq Griffin. I saw in the chat, Ronald Darby. Yeah, that's a great fit. He had a good season in Washington. I think that's the route you go. There's some guys out there, whether it's like Desmond King, there's some corners available. It's a deep position in free agency. It's a deep position in the draft. And if you don't identify it in the first round, you can identify it in the second round. But as far as Reddick, where are you going to get the pass rush? A guy that had 19.5 sacks in 2019. Chandler Jones, you're paying him $21 million. He's in a contract year. He's going to be motivated to come off the injury. He's going to be motivated to be in a contract year, show he can still do it. So I don't have any kind of problems with the pass rush. Dennis Gardett's a guy that had 7.5 sacks in playing in a limit pass rush role. I think he can help you out. Devon Kennard, I believe, is going to still be on this roster. If he can stay healthy, he can help you get some of the sack numbers. But you got your home run hit. You got your 3-run home run hitter in Chandler Jones. He's gonna be that guy. As far as you got to find that playmaker opposite DeAndre Hopkins, and I don't think that's necessarily you got to find wide receiver 2. You got to find a tight end. I saw in the chat that a guy like Jonnu Smith would be a good. Yeah, absolutely, Jonnu Smith. It'd be the first time they've ever invested in the tight end position. Like, the GOAT Cardinals tight end of all time is like Freddie Jones from like 2000. Todd Heap, like his career was over. Former Sun Devil, but he was a good player in Baltimore, not in Arizona. Todd Heap. The position is futile. Like when you look at the last couple guys or last teams that have been in the Super Bowl, Travis Kelce, obviously Gronk. Ertz, like every George Kittle, like every team has a playmaking tight end. The Cardinals have never invested in. They're like, oh yeah, we think Dan Arnold could be a fantasy football sleeper, but he shows up like a handful of games a year. Yeah, it'd be nice to see them invest in that position, but historically they just never have.
Yeah,
they just have to find, if it's a running back, if it's a tight end, if it's a wide receiver 2, that could be the weapon opposite DeAndre Hopkins, and that would be huge for this offense. That's already scary, even though their numbers at the end of the year ended up average.
There are two things that I say on almost every podcast with Bo. Number one, this offseason is a paint-by-number, choose-your-own adventure. What are you going to make this team look like? And the second thing I say is you need to find a strength on this team, and there isn't one. There is not a strength. You have top-heavy, skip leg day players, and then you have everybody else. So the wide receiving isn't a strength. You have DeAndre Hopkins, but that's it. Maybe the safety position is the closest with Jalen Thompson and Budda Baker. Cornerback, not a strength. Interior defensive line, offensive line, running back. There's no strength. So find one. Just go do it. Choose who you want, what level of this team, offense or defense, you want to be a strength, and do it. You would lend to think that it would be wide receiver because you have DeAndre Hopkins already. You already have a leg up. And a real quick quote for the Unicorn Fringe Fantasy, I will do a mock draft 24 hours a day. I've been following her for like 3 days. 38 mock drafts in 3 days. This is the number that I looked at because Bo and I talked about this a lot throughout the season was red zone targets for DeAndre Hopkins. We had projections when the season started. I said DeAndre Hopkins would score 15 touchdowns. And I wasn't blowing the roof off. I just thought that they needed so much help in the red zone. He has the best hands in football, and he runs these routes and just gets him open, even when they're inside the 5-yard line with Houston. He caught everything. And it was the opposite of that. So DeAndre Hopkins had 12 catches inside the red zone on 20 targets all year. Devontae Adams had 25 receptions and 14 touchdowns in the red zone. So Devontae Adams had more touchdowns in the red zone than DeAndre Hopkins had receptions. And the Packers wide receiving core in the Cardinals, and yeah, Aaron Rodgers is better than Kyler Murray right now, but Jesus H, man, he's the number one receiver and he gets thrown the ball all the time. And DeAndre Hopkins, even though he had 1,400 receiving yards and 115 receptions, Bo and I did on the podcast today, we said he could have had 1,800 yards without a sweat if they ran the right offense. So getting a receiver and getting a corner, in my opinion, are the most important things because DeAndre Hopkins could flourish, man.
Why has Andy Isabella not been able to take that role? Like, it seems like when he catches the ball, good things happen. Why has he not been able to get the playing time and the targets it would take, I guess, to become what he at one point appeared like he could be?
Well, quickly, let me take this real quick. If it was a different offense, he could be Scotty Miller.
Oh, he could be. Yeah.
He could be Scotty Miller. But this offense in Unicorn, I think Cliff is just, he doesn't get it yet. He'll either figure it out or he won't. But there is so many plays in this playbook that they're just not executing correctly or not calling at the right time. Andy Isabella could be a lot bigger of a difference maker than he is right now, in my opinion.
I disagree. No, not even close.
The biggest fault he is he's not DK Metcalf. That's why people hate Andy Isabella.
That's a big fault. Yeah, and that's on Steve Keim, the general manager, for thinking, hey, he's got some nice stats from the FCS. He played at UMass. He's an undersized receiver. Oh, he's fast. He's a great track athlete, apparently. But he can't get open. He can't get separation. He can't run routes correctly. I don't know what it is. He's not a football player. It's just not. If he goes and he has success elsewhere, good for him. I'm over the Andy Isabella project in the desert. Like, they have to find out who's going to be a guy that they can couple with DeAndre Hopkins, because the crew that they have right now, it's just it didn't get the job done at the end of the season. And yeah, Cliff is part of this group. He's got to figure it out. But man, no, I am not on board with like Andy Isabella if in the right situation. It's like, come on. I mean, he was a throw-in pick for Josh Rosen. You should have taken DK Metcalf, and Isabella it's just a horrible reminder of that each and every week.
Unicorn, is Andy Isabella better than DK Metcalf?
Absolutely not. I'm not a big Andy Isabella person, to be honest. I've been saying it for a while. And I understand that he hasn't really been in a situation to get enough opportunities for us to really, objectively, I guess, make that call. But I'm just not on board with Andy Isabella. I definitely will, agree that Cliff Kingsbury's play calling is just, it hasn't been good, and it hasn't been good for Christian Kirk either. I mean, even where he had, a higher number of times where he was on the field and he was involved in a lot of snaps, he still had fewer targets for some reason. So it's hard to kind of predict what exactly is going on, what his plan is in mind for the receiving core, but Andy Isabella ain't it.
Christian Kirk is the other name that I was going to bring up here, but I want to switch over to another name that just hasn't even been brought up, even though we talked about Kenyon Drake, is Chase Edmonds. It seems like Chase Edmonds hasn't been something like, is he not part of what do you think the future plan of this team could be? Could he not take that lead back role?
No, I mean, he's controllable. He's still under contract for a couple more years. I think his role is pretty defined. Like he's the third down guy. He's a guy that can make plays in the pass game. He's a guy that sometimes can surprise you on the ground. But like immediately after he went off for like 120 plus yards and 3 touchdowns against New York in 2019, he pulls his hamstring. He's just not a guy that's durable enough. He's not a guy that you can put in a goal line situation. He's just not a bell cow type. And I just think that, and I don't think Chase Edmonds is going to vie and tell you that we don't know what we're talking about. I think he knows what his role is, and he can play that at a very high level. Maybe find an opportunity to get him more touches in a game. But as far as being that lead back, I think the ship has kind of sailed on that.
Yeah, I mean that's the smartest thing Bo's ever said, and I'm reaching. I mean, no. So here's the thing: he got his chances here because he was the alluring guy. I mean, he had a couple breakout touchdowns in the first couple weeks. I think one against San Francisco, he had a long chunk run around the right side for a score, for a chunk play, for a touchdown. But he's not a between the tackles guy. And that's one thing that the Cardinals just need to get. And I have it. Jamal Williams is my guy.
Oh, yeah.
Jamal Williams is my guy. And I'm going to tell you why quickly. There's going to be a timeshare in this backfield. So Chase Edmonds is going to be very important for this backfield, but he may only get seven touches, handoffs a game. There's going to be a lot more of that. Jamal Williams could be a bell cow if he's given the option. Like, if Giovanni Bernard got the chance 5 years ago, he'd probably be a lead back somewhere. But it's been somebody else the whole time. I think Jamal Williams is the same thing. But Bo's right. I mean, he's not. He can't run between the tackles. He's a scat back, and that's it. He has a nose for the end zone, which is great. But, yeah, he's definitely not the guy going to be the guy.
Unicorn, how would you feel about a guy in your own division there crossing over? That's a free agent, Chris Carson, maybe taking it over in that backfield. That seems like it would be pretty fun to me.
Love it.
Yeah, I mean, that could be good. I'm definitely not high on Chase Edmonds either. I feel like he's absolutely not a primary back. I'd like to see them, try and utilize him a little bit more, creatively, at least, to get more out of him, and make the most of his abilities as a pass catcher and things like that. But he's absolutely not a primary back. We definitely need somebody else over there for that run game to be more effective.
Yeah, as Nate says here in the chat, Chase had 67 targets last year, 7 in the NFL, 53 receptions. That's really good. That's part of why I think, 7 for running backs he adds there. But he's so good at the backfield. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you. I think I'm lagging a little. But I was just saying, yeah, he had like a career high in carries and catches this past season.
Yeah, so it certainly seemed like the kind of guy that I guess seemed like he could do more, but maybe if there was a bona fide number 2 wide receiver across, maybe he wouldn't get as many targets, and maybe that would be good based on what you guys are saying. That's why we do this, because we like to hear, the perspective of these guys that watch it every single day, every single week, not just watching the Red Zone channel, but watching, every single snap. So let's talk a little bit about the draft, and Alex, I'll toss this one to you first. Like, do you have a favorite draft, like somebody that you hope they take in the first round, or just maybe in the later rounds?
Bo, who's my guy? Number 69 from Alabama.
Oh God, no, man, you're not serious, right?
No. Landon Dickerson. I'm talking so number 16 is in its purgatory. You could trade up, which they won't. You could trade back and maybe accumulate a second or third round pick. But if they're going to stick, like, this sounds like a cop-out answer, but it's really going to determine what they do in free agency. So say they can get an offensive lineman and a corner, maybe you take Jalen Waddle if he drops. Even though it's kind of counterintuitive to how you build a winning roster, but the Cardinals aren't as close as people think they are to being like a perennially winning team. So if I had to choose one guy, it would probably be a corner. Even though offensive line is the biggest need, they're going to sign an offensive lineman this offseason. It's probably not going to be Joe Thuney, but they're going to sign somebody. And their offensive line wasn't terrible last year. Their cornerback group was terrible. Like, even it didn't look like it. Patrick Peterson kind of mucked it up a little, but they don't have anybody they can trust in the secondary in the cornerback position. So I would hope for corner, and I hope it's J.C. Horn. So Bo can just revel in the fact that everybody chose J.C. Horn at 16 for them, and they nailed it. But yeah, probably be corner, unless they go and sign a number 1 corner, and then Jalen Waddle's there, or it would be either Jalen Waddle or Devonta Smith for some reason if he would drop, but it'd most likely be Jalen Waddle.
Bo, you agree?
No, of course not. With Alex, on hardly anything in this world. It's if it is J.C. Horn, it's like the one of 3 picks that Mel Kiper gets every season as far as the draft's concerned. I'm just so intrigued by finding, I think, at 16, with the way that the draft boards are falling, depending on what night it is and on mock draft night, which is every day that ends in Y, apparently in Unicorn's household. But
it's insane for you. What do you sleep? Jesus.
Not really. Not often.
Sorry, Bo.
No, you're fine. when you look at how there's going to be 5 quarterbacks potentially off the board, and what type of non-quarterback prospect could fall into your lap, and you're so close, and you just need an impact maker. Last year's first-round pick didn't make an impact. Last year's third-round pick, or in your second draft pick of the whole draft, didn't make an impact. If you can find a guy that can make an impact, that can start right away, do it. And if it can be that guy that you can, put opposite, DeAndre Hopkins, if it's Waddle, if it's, if it's Pitts, I know that's a stretch. That's a dream scenario where the tight end from Florida, just a playmaker, Kyle Pitts falls to 16. It's probably not going to happen, but you just got to, I think you got to swing for the fences. You can't draft need in that position. Alex and I both subscribe to, if you want to take an offensive lineman, we're never going to be like, okay, what are you doing? We'll always take offensive linemen because you always need them. But as far as finding playmakers and blue chip kind of talent, go out there and get a guy. And there's some just really talented wide receivers, even beyond like the top guys. You can go like 7 deep, and these guys are going to make impacts like in their first season. We saw it last year. We've seen it the last couple seasons. What was it? Was it Justin Jefferson was the 5th wide receiver taken last year? Was that right?
Something like that.
Yeah, and he was a beast for Minnesota. So imagine finding that guy for the Cardinals at 16, and I think there's a really good potential that he's going to be there based on those quarterback-hungry teams taking QBs. Let's please pray that Mac Jones somehow goes in front of the Cardinals, because that's one more player that can slide to the Cardinals.
No, he's right. I mean, so you look at the top quarterbacks, okay, Zach Wilson, Trey Lance, Justin Fields, Trevor Lawrence, that's 4. Mac Jones is going to go top 15. Like, I don't know. There's so many teams with quarterbacks. He's going to go top 15. So that's 5. You have Penny Sewell. You have Jamar Chase. Okay, you have Micah Parsons will probably go. That's 8. So we're halfway there, and the weird stuff hasn't happened yet. Say Devontae Smith is 9. We have no idea what's going to happen after that.
Slater, who's one of the top tackle prospects.
From Northwestern. Elijah Vera Tucker may go before. I mean, he's slated to go later. Like, all joking aside, Landon Diggers is supposed to be a late first-round pick, but how many offensive tackles went in the top 15 last year? I mean, the Tampa Bay traded up for Tristan Wirfs, who was the 3rd off the board. So, I mean, it's going to be weird, and nobody knows. Like, the Cardinals, as long as they don't take a running back at 16, I'm good. And Bo and I disagree with that too. He's good with Najee Harris at 16, and he's insane. Like, if you take,
I don't like that. No.
Yeah, thank you.
Just think about it. You get a 22-year-old that you can just. There's no mileage limit on it. You just rack up the miles on the young man. Just
Arian Foster him.
Rock. You just run them into the ground. It's like a brand new Toyota. Just put like 250,000 miles on it in like a year. Just do it. Why not?
Like
and he's under.
Yeah, right.
He had a 1,000-yard year. Come on.
Yeah.
I would say that I don't have a problem with that. That I think, because think about it. Opposing defensive coordinators are like, okay, we have to account for Kyler Murray, of course. We got to account for DeAndre Hopkins, Christian Kirk, and then now whoever this rookie running back is. I don't have a problem with it. And now, do I think that the value at 16, I think you're wasting it, but I really wouldn't have a huge problem with it.
Unicorn, are you on board with Najee Harris at 16, or are you hoping they look somewhere else?
Honestly, I mean, I think I already mentioned it earlier. I jumped the gun a little bit, but I would love it. I would absolutely love it. I don't necessarily think that it's the best. I don't think it's necessarily the best use of that draft pick. I think that probably, going with quarter is going to have a bigger impact on the team's overall success. But I think that, the backfield does need help. I just feel like Kenny Drake is not it. And I would love to see them take Najee at 16.
Quarterback probably does make the most sense, but I always root for whatever's going to be the most fun. And it certainly would be fun to end up with a Devonta Smith, or you mentioned Jalen Waddle. Gosh, that would be a lot of fun too. I mean, he was really good this year. There's a lot of really good wide receivers that would be a really fun fit for this team too, and even some from pretty close to your backyard. I mean, even like St. Brown or some of those guys that you can get in the 2nd or 3rd round might be a pretty decent fit. But I want to ask you really just one last question, and it's about Kyler Murray. We really haven't expanded too much on him. Obviously, pretty close to the top quarterback in fantasy this year. Unicorn, I'll start with you. Like, what's the ceiling for Kyler Murray? Like, can he be the best quarterback in fantasy football in a world where Patrick Mahomes exists?
Can he be? Absolutely. Absolutely. I think it's going to take a little bit of time, for some other, areas to fall into place. But absolutely, I think he can. I think, if we're talking about just, his talent versus Mahomes' talent, and I love Patrick Mahomes, but he's definitely on par for sure.
Nate has a really cool, they've been really active in the chat here. He's got a mock draft that he's done. So he apparently likes mock drafts just as much as Unicorn does, and he's done his own for the Cardinals.
Mm-hmm.
With Bateman and Dickerson and Shelvin and Stokes, that's actually pretty good. That's not bad.
It fills needs. It certainly does. I mean, as far as the first pick off the board, I mean, that's the one thing where Steve Keim's going to really have to do his homework and find out, should he trade back? Can he get one of those players later? He's had a lot, as much as we trash talk Steve Keim, he's had success making deals and getting value out of them. As far as hitting on draft picks, it's not his strong suit. So, if he can kind of limit his margin of error, sure. I like that. I like that draft class. I want one guy that's going to pop, like go be a big time player for this team because they're that close. They went 8-8. I think with a full off season, if they get hit right at least on their first round pick, it can be big, and they can get another player via free agency. This team would be in a great spot. Kyler Murray, I mean, he can be the top fantasy quarterback. He really was. I think a lot of fantasy owners that had success early on probably were cursing his name at the end of the season because he got him to the playoffs, and then when it mattered most, he fell short. But his ability, he is lethal in the red zone. His legs are out of control. Alex called him the most evasive back in the league. He
elusive.
is elusive, evasive, whatever you want to, whatever adjective you want to use.
Hold me right.
He doesn't get touched. He just doesn't. And he had 11 rushing touchdowns. He had 26 passing touchdowns. Once he starts to throw the ball and kind of start to make all the throws, he could make a jump like Josh Allen did last year. And like those are going to be the guys like that kind of. That's rarefied air. It's like Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Russell Wilson, maybe. Like that's the type of quarterback he is fantasy wise right now already.
I like this idea. As a Saints fan, I mean, I love Marshawn Lattimore, but the Saints could use an extra first round pick, and we have no cap room. We have negative like a 4,000 million cap or something like that.
I think it's exactly 4,000 million. I think like with Lattimore. He's going to go for a second because you're going to have to pay him. So that's going to be a thing like somebody taking on a big contract and giving a draft pick for it, like the Brock Osweiler thing. It's going to be opposite of that. With Kyler Murray, listen, like we're going to find out if he's an NFL quarterback or not this year. Like we're going to find out if he's going to be elite or not this year. Last year was fine. We saw if he's unable to run the ball, he's not Lamar Jackson on the ground. And Lamar Jackson can somehow – dipsy doodle around and figure out a way to put points on the board without throwing the ball effectively or a lot. Kyler Murray is going to need to be able to do it from behind the line of scrimmage this year. And if he's not going to be able to, we're going to find out. Like, I love Kyler Murray. I think he'll be able to elevate his game, but he hit his sophomore slump midway through last season. And I just hope he can overcome it this upcoming year. But fantasy-wise, in a 4-point passing touchdown league, he's got to be a monster.
Yeah.
Like he's got to be an absolute monster in a standard like Yahoo League or ESPN League with 4 points for passing touchdown.
Bo, from a real life NFL standpoint, can you win a Super Bowl with Kyler Murray?
Yeah, I think he takes care of the football enough during a 4-game stretch potentially in the playoffs that he could absolutely do that. Obviously with the team surrounding him, I like his ability to throw the football than even a guy like Lamar Jackson when it comes down to it and he needs to make a big play on 3rd and long. He's got he's got the arm talent to make those throws, no doubt about it. Whether he's going to be put in the position as far as, schematically, like, as far as personnel, that remains to be seen. But I do. I think he's got the skill set. Absolutely. And at his age, 23, I mean, the sky's the limit on a guy like him. Absolutely. And, you can say I'm crazy for thinking that, but he's shown so far, and he's answered every question. Like, he took over. He was Baker Mayfield's successor at Oklahoma. He wins the Heisman. He's the number one pick after deciding to give up baseball. And that's something we barely have talked about, two-sport athlete. And then he wins the Offensive Rookie of the Year. He shows up in a big way in year 2, answers a lot of questions, puts himself early on in that MVP talk. And yeah, he's the real deal. It's just, can they, and this is the offseason, can they take advantage when he's not making $40 million a season and they can surround him with the talent necessary? That's the biggest question.
Well, it just feels like anytime he wants a first down, he can get it. It just feels like with his feet, like with, getting out on the edge, something like that. Like, it just feels like he can get that first down whenever he needs it. And that's huge. I mean, you have the ability to move the chains like that. That's something that's so hard to stop. Unicorn, I'll give the last word to you. And if you want to just tell everybody where we can find you, where you're at, and what you're going to be working on this offseason. One more last time to plug.
Awesome. So you can follow me. Obviously, my name is on the screen, unicorn_fringe. And make sure you definitely check out True North Fantasy Football on Twitter also. And keep a lookout. Like I said, there's going to be a lot of cool stuff coming up pretty soon. And thanks so much for having us on here, Cal.
Yeah, of course. Thank you so much for coming. And Alex, there was a point in the show where Bo said, like, Alex is right. Do I need to cut that for you? Do you want me to send that to you?
Sometimes they're Freudian slips, man. He knows it all the time. He just sometimes lets it out. He might have had one wine cooler tonight. Kiwi strawberry really gets him. So the truth serum really might have come out. But no, I hear it enough. I'm good.
How are you? Obviously on the radio, but they can find you. Your handle's right there. Yeah. Do you have a TikTok or anything you want to plug?
No, I do not.
I like how you went straight to TikTok.
Hell no.
Yeah, Alex has a TikTok where he just fires off horrible sports takes for like 6 seconds at a time. It's huge.
Yeah, and I do those stupid ass dances. I don't get TikTok at all.
You can listen to us though wherever you find podcasts. Locked On Cardinals, we do it every day. We churn through a lot of content, but at the same time, it's 20 to 30 minutes. It's a great thing for the commute. You can just throw it on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Stitcher, wherever you can find it. I think even a MySpace music page, we're on there. You can find it. We love Locked On Cardinals. We have a lot of fun, and you can tell that we have contrasting opinions on a lot of things, and it's just organic. It's not like sitting down and watching Max Kellerman and Stephen A. Smith. It's actually how we feel, and we back it up.
Yeah.
Now that was fantastic. I mean, I certainly appreciate all you guys for coming on. I mean, that was a really good preview, I think, of what the Cardinals could do this offseason. Honestly, like, based on everything I was looking at, you guys had a very different spin on a lot of it than I saw, and that's because you guys think about this every day. You hear the fans, you read what Steve Keim says, you read what the owner says, and that's exactly why we like to do this. So certainly appreciate that. For all you guys, for Matt Donnelly, who I know you guys don't know, but believe it or not, he has more kids than Antonio Cromartie. Believe it or not.
And, 38.
For these guys, I think that's the show. See you, Red Cardinals. Go Cardinals.